What is up, tubular you? I look absolutely disgusting right now, but you know, why do my makeup for a video about productivity? We don't have time for that, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, today's video is going to be about how I got straight A's my first semester of college. I'm on winter break currently. My A's, they were straight. I want to graduate with a 4.0. I think I can do it. I have 5 particular tips as to why I think I can do it, and I'm gonna give those tips on to you. If you like this video, if you like me, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, anything you want, just why not? And my last video is linked down below. So you should... I post videos every Sunday. You should go watch my other videos. Just a suggestion. And or subscribe, you know. And by and or, I mean and subscribe, so. Let's get into the video. Here are my 5 tips of how to get a 4.0 or straight A's your first semester of college. These tips also kind of apply to high school. Tip number 1 is something that you have heard your entire life, I guarantee it. Organization. But organization does absolutely matter. Keep a planner. If you have a planner and you get assigned something, or if you have a test on a certain day, write it down. I can't tell you how many times people get stupid zeros pointlessly because they just didn't do their homework, or they just forgot to study for the test because they didn't know it was due that day, because they didn't know the test was that day. It's not worth it. Literally just study. Just write it in a planner. I keep a bullet journal. A lot of people keep a planner, but a bullet journal is a fun way to organize because it's like you get to be artsy at the same time that you're planning things. So like I get to doodle, or I can write in it if I want to, all whilst being productive. It's the fun illusion of productivity, folks. And if you plan things, then you won't get overwhelmed with things all at once. Which leads me to my next point. Tip number 2, time management. Time management is so incredibly early. What? Time management is so incredibly important, especially when it comes to things like papers and tests, particularly final exams. If you're cramming everything the night before for a final exam, you're doing it wrong. Here's what you need to do, folks. When I write a paper, personally, this is what works for me. You usually get assigned a paper about a week in advance. As soon as I get assigned that paper, I go home, go back to my dorm, wherever you live, and I start researching things, decide my topic, if it's one of those kinds of papers, just do whatever research I need, and then maybe the next day, I'll just sit down and write. If it's a 1,000-word paper, I'll just write all of the 1,000 words. I don't care about grammar, not organization, nothing. And that way, for the next like 4 or 5 days, you can slowly just go back for like maybe 10, 15 minutes a day and just revise your paper until it's a perfectly submittable paper. If you just sit down one day before the paper is due, probably, if you're like a lot of college students, most likely 10 minutes before the paper is due, trying to write the entire thing before 11:59 p.m. I apologize that the lighting changed. It be like that sometimes, folks. As I was saying, if you sit down to write a paper 10 minutes before it's due, you're just gonna find yourself having writer's block, having a lot of frustration. That frustration you're going to take out on yourself, those around you, a bunch of negative energy. In turn, just start the paper in advance. There's plenty of ways to do it. Takes a lot of stress off of you. And plus, instead of dedicating an entire day to writing, not feeling this. If you're, oh no, that's good. If you're dedicating your entire day or evening to writing a paper, then you're probably missing out on fun events and things that other college kids are doing. College kids that use time management skills. For example, if you do everything just for like 20 minutes a day, then you won't have to take 5 hours in one day just to get it out of the way, if you know what I'm saying. Rule number 3, suggestion number 3, ideal number 3, you know, to be strict with yourself. Getting good grades is all about sacrifices. Are you surprised? Instead of going out with your friends, stay home and study. I know it sucks, but it just kind of be like that sometimes. But that doesn't mean you don't have to have a social life or a bad sleep schedule. Actually, as a matter of fact, if you want to balance all 3 of those things, most likely you're not going to have a good sleep schedule, but like, forgot to mention this in my time management section because I'm literally the worst. This was one of my number 1 things. For time management, make a homework list. If you have a bunch of homework assignments, as soon as you get them, put it on one sheet of paper. That made no sense. Okay, carry around a sheet of paper, and as you get assigned things, write it down. And then you get the fun, satisfying feeling of crossing off the thing that you have done, as well as the productivity of actually having that thing done. So for example, you could be like, I'm gonna get 3 things crossed off my homework list before I go do this. So just be strict with yourself. Everything kind of goes hand in hand in this video.
You better stop!
Tip number 4 is to make flashcards, and I cannot stress this enough. I know this does not apply to every learning style, but I don't promise you, but I strongly suggest that you should make flashcards and that they will most likely help you. You have no idea. My grade comparisons from when I do make flashcards versus when I don't, and flashcards are really only things that you can use for basic subjects such as like science, history, just things where it's very like rote memorization, but things like math and English are kind of different, which is why I talked about how to write a paper basically. But when it comes to math, it's a whole nother story, which I'll talk about in tip number 5. But sticking with tip number 4, flashcards, what I do is just attend class every day. That is still kind of part of time management, but just go to class. You paid for the class, unless you're a high schooler. You paid for that. Why do you not want to attend the class? Go to the class, take notes, write down every single thing that the professor says as much as possible. And yeah, I know people say paraphrase things. If they're going fast, yes, do your best, paraphrase. But if you have time, write down every single thing that you can, because a lot of times professors make their tests out of their notes. If your professor plays a review game, write down every single question from the review game. I cannot stress this enough. Those are so important, and I'm usually the only person out of the entire class that writes down the review questions. You're not gonna remember every single one of these questions. At the end of the chapter/lesson, whatever your professor is teaching, you just take all of your notes and you turn them all into questions. Use every single point of the note and turn it into a question. If you memorize those flashcards, you know every single thing that can be on that test. Okay, number 5, like I promised, is how to study for math. And this is kind of my own personal thing. Math is actually one of my weakest subjects. But how I study for math is I take notes. I write down every single problem that the professor writes down. And at the end of the section, I write down all of those problems without the answers. I write them all down. I write down all of the problems from homework. I write down all of the problems from maybe a review game that the professor played. And I basically just create a practice test. So I just keep doing that practice test. I do it once without studying and see how I did and see the points that I really need to focus on. And once I see my weakest points, then I go and I look it up on YouTube and watch YouTube tutorials on how to do that particular thing. But about the topic of reviews, a lot of professors I know do not allow students to write things down during reviews, so you could maybe like record the lecture and go back and write down everything that the professor says and then turn it into flashcards. But if that happens to be illegal, definitely don't do that and pretend that I never told you to do that. And no, I have never done that in my life, ever, not once. Those are my 5 tips, and yeah, I probably forgot to mention a lot of things because that's just the way my mind works. So if you want to see a part 2, like this video and subscribe to me. Just please subscribe to me, seriously, come on. It's not that hard. It's a click of a button, come on. You know you want to do it. Okay. Social media links are in the description, and follow me. I'm really trying to plug myself so hard right here. Okay, thank you for gazing your retinas upon my beautiful face. I hope you do really well in college and high school. I need to stop talking so fast. Oh my god, I'm literally giving myself a headache. Bye!